Hello, YouTube. All right, so today I want to try and bring all of these various spiritual maps of the human body and energy system and self all together. It can get really confusing. There's seven chakras, there are four minds, there are three selves, there are five elements. There's the yin and the yang, there's the physical and the spiritual, so I brought together some of these from different traditions, and so we can talk about what they're all about and what they do. So let me see here. That's not what I wanted to do at all. Or is that what I wanted to do? Anyway, I wanted to get my notes on the four minds. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about today, as we've said, is the seven chakras, the five elements, the four minds, the three selves, and the nine worlds. I've included the nine worlds because that is, in my experience, a good psychological map of the human being. And so we can take a look at all of these things and put them all together and get, hopefully it won't be more confusing, but we'll get a better idea of what's going on with all of these different things. So most people are familiar with the seven chakra system. And people ask questions like, how can I open the heart chakra? And, I want to open this chakra and that chakra. And as though as though you can like pick and choose between the chakras. But in order to understand that, we have to understand that the chakras are points along a pathway on the spinal column for the Kundalini. So you can't combine chakras with Qigong system. When you talk about chakras, you have to talk about Kundalini. So you have to understand what Kundalini does, what the purpose of it is, and how it reflects to you in terms of the human being, your experience. In case anybody wonders, people keep asking me what I'm drinking. This is my organic cola kombucha. So it doesn't have any sugar in it. They don't add any stuff in it. It's just got herbs and kombucha, and I don't know what the hell. It doesn't taste anything like Coke. In case you think it tastes like Coke, it doesn't. As close as I get to drinking soda. So we have to understand that those are the seven chakras, and the seven chakras are connected to the Kundalini system. And then we have the five elements. Now, the five elements are connected to the five organs. This, of course, I'm talking from a Chinese perspective. I do believe that the Ayurvedic has its own. Ayurvedic system has its own interpretation of the five elements, which I have no idea if it's the same or different. And I don't talk about anything I don't know anything about, so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the spiritual, energetic perspective of the five elements in relation to the five organs. So we've got the seven chakras, the five organs, and the five elements. And then we have the four minds. Now, I know you've heard me talk about the three minds, but in this case, I'm using the word self for those. So we have the four minds, and then we have the three selves, and then I've added the nine worlds. We could go further. We could go from the three selves to the two genders within ourselves, male and female, and then we could go to the singularity, which would be our soul essence, which is when you break everything down, that's what's left. All the other things above that, even the nine worlds, once you have the singularity, which is the soul, on top of the soul, then the soul, once it comes into manifestation, expresses male and female. But we're extrapolating out from the source. So from the one comes the two, the yin and the yang. From the two comes the three, the mind, body, and spirit. From the 3 come the 5, which is the 5 elements. And then it doesn't go from 5 to 7. But we go from 5 to infinity. But we also have 7 chakras, and then we have 9 worlds. And the 9 worlds for me are the psychological personality. So we're going to take a look at all those things. That's a lot to chew on, but I'll try and go over them briefly and see if we can bring it all together. Bear in mind, I am working with multiple systems from multiple traditions. And the reason why I'm doing it is because people get them confused. People are trying to find, equal, same thing. Like, for instance, Kundalini and Chi. People do this all the time. People go, oh, Chi is Kundalini. Like, no, it's not. But that's because people are trying to go, Chi is Chinese and Kundalini is yogic, and so that must be what they're talking about. And that's a human thing. We're always trying to find the equal thing in some other tradition. But we have to understand, my perspective is that these traditions, these spiritual traditions, are given to each culture originally for safekeeping. And so when a culture like the Chinese culture has a strong connection to the 5 elements and to life force energy, or Qi. And so that's because I believe they have been given that, and they were given that, way back when the human race started moving around and going to different places. The universe said, let's give this science to these guys, let them figure that out. Then let's give the Kundalini and the chakra system to the Vedics. Let them figure that out. Then let's give the 9 worlds, which has a connection to the 9 psychological aspects. Let's give that to these guys up here in Europe. Let them figure that out. And so along with those things. Now, I believe that we're in that space of time where we are bringing all of these things together into a unified system, which is one of the things that I'm doing. And so we have to understand it. On the surface level, my experiences, people with limited thinking abilities and looking at things on a surface level, try to find equivalence. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Chi is Kundalini. That's making an equivalent, because we want to do that. We want to make things make sense, and people want to, be able to say that if they practiced yoga and they practiced qigong, they want to be able to make it make sense to their mind, instead of understanding these are 2 completely different systems, and they're superimposed on each other, and they work together, but they're different. All right? So let's start with the 9 worlds, since I have that on there. We'll start with the 9 worlds. So the 9 worlds of the world tree, you can see right here in this. Here is a symbol which has 8 limbs. This is an Ayash Yalmer. In the Vedic tradition, it's called an Ashtanga Yantra. And then in the middle is the 9th world. And this, for me, has a lot to do with the psyche of the person. So if you go to courses.thunderwizard.com, you'll find rune readings and training in rune, 9 world rune readings. And when I look at a 9 world spread, I set it up like that, with 8 around it and 1 in the middle. And that tells me what's happening with the 9 aspects of the personality. So the top one, if we were to give one psychological label to that, which I haven't done as of yet, we could put intuition there, because this is what represents what's coming to the individual but hasn't arrived yet. We move over to the north. See, for you, yep. We move over to the northeast, and this would be the super conscious mind. We're talking not about just the higher mind, but the super conscious mind that goes even beyond the higher self. Then we move over here to the east, and this would represent the ego, the identity. We're going to talk about that when we get to the 4 minds. We move down here to the southwest. This would be the subconscious, not the unconscious, but the subconscious mind. We move down here to the bottom, and this is the will. This is the willpower of the individual to take action towards something. And then we go over here. This is the unconscious mind. This is the underworld. This is where all the thoughts, feelings, your childhood patterns, all that, that's all stuck right down in there. And then we move over here, and this has to do with the ability to give. So this is your ability, this would be your empathy, being able, knowing how to give to other people. These are the two polar opposites of the self. Here in the middle, we have the ego on one end, and we have empathy on the other. This is the Vanir. And then we go up here to the northwest, and here we have the higher self. These are the elves, the elf home. And then in the middle is Midgard, or the self. This would be the conscious experience, the full, complete conscious experience of all the other 8 realms. So those are the 8 selves of the, and I'm applying it. You can apply the 9 worlds to all different things, but I'm applying it to the personality from a psychological perspective. Then we have the 7 chakras. Now the 7 chakras are aligned along areas on the spine. People point to the root chakra, the sexual area, the navel, the heart center, the throat, the third eye, right? Is that right? 1, 2, 1. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Am I doing that right? Yeah. Does 5 go here, and then 6, and 7? All right. So you have these 7 chakras. Now each of these 7 chakras deals with things similar to the 9 worlds, because the chakras are Kundalini. Kundalini is the energy. We can call it the nuclear energy. This is the energy having to do with human incarnated awareness. It's not life force energy. You go anywhere on the web, YouTube, or just type in what is Kundalini, and you'll hear a bunch of things, but a lot of things that you will hear over and over again from people who are, again, trying to find equivalents. They're looking for superficial equivalents because they don't really understand what they're looking at. That's not their fault, because not a lot of people do. You'll see a lot of people will say that Kundalini is the creative life force energy of the universe, and that is just completely, totally inaccurate. Kundalini is only found in humans, and it is only having to do with the incarnated self. The Kundalini is actually like a software program that allows the soul, which is infinite, to have a self, to have a human self, and to interact with the world. And so the 7 chakras represent realms of psychological awareness. People think if I open the heart chakra, I'll get this. If I open the third eye, I'll be, Look, that's not how chakras work. Opening your third eye does not mean that you're going to get psychic powers. Having psychic powers does not mean that your chakras are open or that you are enlightened or even advanced. That's like saying Arnold. When Arnold was Mr. Olympia, he was the most spiritually advanced person in the world because he had the biggest muscles. No, he just had big muscles because he lifted weights and he took steroids. That's what happens when you take steroids and lift weights. You get big muscles. It's just, it's just another basic human ability. Psychic powers are no different. There are tons of people with psychic powers that are the most screwed up, unhealthy people you've ever seen in your life, and they can't tell the difference between their intuition and their own fantasy. So opening certain chakras, it's not like you have these 7 chakras to choose from and you're going to go, I'll open that one. It doesn't work like that. Kundalini has to do with becoming mature. And as you mature, the soul wants to learn. It wants to go through a process. When you play a video game, like on my iPad, when I'm sitting on the toilet, I've got this new game that I play. It's just you pulling the little things and opening the bubbles and down into the, just something to do to pass the time. But you have to start at the beginning, and then each level you get better and better and better. The soul does that in each lifetime. Now, a soul may have had experience in a past lifetime where it's worked through 3 of the levels, so when it gets here, it goes through the first 3 levels really quickly, and then it starts from the navel center and works its way up. Maybe it's farther along. Maybe somebody's been here many, many times, and the last time they were around, they were a guru on the mountaintop, in which case their throat chakra would be opened. I believe this is where I'm at. If you want to know where I'm at, I think this is where I'm at, right here. I can't say that for sure. Some people say that I'm here or here. I honestly don't care. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm just trying to live my life. But based on the evidence, I think this is where I'm at. Because I do a lot of talking about spiritual stuff. And I tend to not have too many gurus that I bow down to. I do have teachers, but so that's up here. These things represent levels of conscious awareness and maturity on a human psychological level. The Kundalini is a program that is here. It's actually, people think by opening the Kundalini that you'll go to the heavenly realms. That's not how it works. Kundalini actually binds you to the earth. It binds you to 3-dimensional existence. And so what you're doing while you're here is you're learning. You learn first how to interact with the physical world in the root chakra. Then you learn how to differentiate from your parents, and you have your own identity, and you express that with superficial creativity, superficial relationships, sexuality. Then you move to mastery of the physical level, and this is the navel center, where you learn how to command, where you learn how to have authority, where you learn how to serve, where you learn how to be fearless. And if you're not in your highest awareness, you can become a bully and a tyrant. But then you overcome that, and then you become the selfless warrior who gives their life in service. So anybody who's spends their life in the military, they're working on their 3rd chakra. That's what they're here to figure out. Then you have the heart chakra, which has to do with once you've gone beyond the idea of controlling or having authority, then you go to being an equal member of a collective society. This is the heart chakra. That's why people whose heart chakra is open are very religious most of the time, because that's what a religion does. It binds people together. In fact, the word religion, religio, is Latin for to bind together. Binds you together. And so that's why, Krishna worshippers will say everything is Krishna, you should worship Krishna because Krishna is the one true God. That's why Christians do the same thing. Oh, Jesus is the one true God, you should worship Jesus. It's a way of saying, be a part of my community. And here, you can do it through this religion. So really, for them, religion is about connecting to other people. That's why it's so damaging for people in cults, because it's so hard for them to leave the cult, because the thing that binds them to the cult is the approval of the other cult members and the cult leader. And what they really want is the love and approval and to belong and connect. Once you get out of here, then you get up here into the throat chakra. And this is the guy who goes and sits on the mountaintop and he meditates, and he's one by himself with the universe, and he talks. And so you go and sit at his feet, and he says, the universe is this, and the universe is that, and this and that, and this. Exactly what I do all day long, right? So that's me. You get up here, and then you get past that, and you get past the ego attachment to that, and you move up to the 3rd eye, where, to be honest, I can't even begin to tell you what it is. I can tell you what it's not. It's not you now can see through walls, and now you can see the future, and you can see into other people, and that's not the 3rd eye. That doesn't mean anything. The third eye is going to get you closer to the idea of the union of yin and yang. So that's the we're bringing it back to the unification of one, and this is where the unification of yin and yang comes together, right here. Then we move up to the crown chakra, where you dissolve into nothingness. You dissolve into, like Shiva. Once you've done that, you're only halfway through the human experience. Then Kundalini turns around and goes back down. And it goes back down through all of the chakras, and it takes this higher vibration, this higher harmonic, to the awareness of the yin and yang, to teaching the truth, to true religion, to true selflessness, to true creativity, and to true union on the physical realm. And then you're a true human. You walk around the earth, and then you can, who knows what can happen. But at the very least, you have a fully aware, conscious self walking through this physical world. This is the Kundalini. This is what Kundalini does. So those are the 7 chakras. And then we have the 5 elements. The 5 elements represent balance. It's really important. I should share 5 element things more often. So what I'm going to do here today, which I've talked about before, is I'm going to share the 6 breaths, which has to do with the 5 elements. So the first one is, we're going to start with ether, which is wood in Chinese. So the ether sound, I got to write down here, 5 healing sounds. Now I'm going to give you the entry level. There's a secret way to do it, which is incredibly powerful, but we'll get into that another time. This is just the entry level of doing it. 5 healing sounds. 6 healing sounds, not the 5, 6. But the first 5 sounds are the elements. So the first one is ether, or wood. And that sound is shh. Just like when you shush somebody. You don't realize it, but when you are shushing somebody, you are helping to balance the ether element. And this is the liver. And here we're dealing with anger. Really resentment, not anger. True anger is the heart. We're talking about resentment, but we'll leave the word anger there. So that sound is shh. So you can do that. Just sit and make that sound. Shh. It'll calm you down. And have you ever noticed when somebody's starting to really lose their temper, people around them go, shh, shh, shh. It's okay, calm down. Shh. So because this sound actually has the ability to calm people down. So that's the first one, which is wood. Second one is fire, and this is the heart, and that sound is ha, ha. That will open up, I can feel it right now, it'll open up the heart center. And what this does is this allows the heart center to overcome impatience. That's why I said anger, true anger, comes from the heart, because true anger is a flash. Resentment, the word resentment means to re-feel. So anger that has to do with something that happened in the past is technically resentment. You may be full of anger, but it's really because of something that happened a while ago. It's got nothing to do with what's happening right now. When something happens right now that is a threat, boom, there's this flash. Hey, knock it off. Somebody cut you off on the freeway. Hey, screw you. And then you're done. Get it out of your system. That's real anger. So when you become impatient, because the heart center has to do with what? Other people. We just talked about it. So the heart center has to do with union of other people. When you are impatient with other people, There's this flash of impatience. So the sound ha will help with that. So there's wood, there's fire, and then we have to ground the fire. So then we go to the earth, which is the stomach. And this has to do with overcoming confusion. And the sound for the earth is Hoo. So for those of you who've done the Hool breath, I'll put that in parentheses here. The Hool breath is an earth sound. Now it's actually earth and water because the L sound brings the water into it. But the Hu sound of it is the earth. So what the earth sound will do is it will give you comprehension. Comprehension. Another variation of the sound is oh. Now this is all over the world, anywhere in the world, If no matter what language it is, if you go oh, people will know he just got it. That sound is there. Same with ooh. People go ooh, they get it. Ooh, I get it. It's big. It's round. Ooh. See, those sounds are connected there. So there's the earth. The earth will give you comprehension and will help you overcome confusion. It's a big deal. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a big deal. You know, I knew a guy who passed away from stomach cancer, and this was a guy who just couldn't get it. This was a guy who just couldn't comprehend certain things, spiritual things. He just, we would try to help him trust. He would have to let go and intuitively trust, and he couldn't do that. He was just constantly trying to figure it out, and it came from his fear and his confusion. He didn't feel grounded in the world, and that's the result of that. Stomach cancer is the result of that. So, we've got earth, fire. We've got ether is sh, fire is ha, earth is hu, and then we have air or metal, and that sound is like a snake. That sound. So it's interesting that snakes make that sound, and what are snakes known for? They're known for their cleverness. They're very smart. And what the metal does, the reason why the Chinese call it metal is because it cuts. It gives you discernment. So the metal is good when you're trying to figure out what is this person, what is the deal with this guy? What kind of thing is he trying to sell me? Interesting. Somebody just recently has been accused me of a snake oil salesman. But I'm thinking, what does the snake do? The snake goes sss. So having to do with somebody who supposedly is clever enough to deceive you, snake oil. Here he is. These things don't happen for nothing. It means that guy's so clever he knows how to swindle people, or that he's so clever he's able to come up with this oil that heals things. The cleverness, the metal cutting through, the air coming through, the fresh breeze coming through, bringing knowledge and wisdom. This is the mental realm, the air. So the sound for that is this works with the lungs. So when we don't have discernment, then one of the things that can happen is disappointment. And this is sadness. When you have a sadness that you can't seem to get over. This will be in the lungs. So a lot of people who have lung issues, people who have lung cancer, or people who have difficulty breathing in the lungs, this is the inability to perceive right from wrong, good or bad? What is the essence of something? And it's also when you can't let go of something, it gets lodged in the lungs. So this is a good sound to relieve that and to let go of any sadness or unresolved disappointment. So let's see, we got 4 of them there, right? We've got ether, fire, earth, air, and the next one is water. And this is kidneys. This overcomes, technically speaking, it overcomes fear, but it really is overcoming lack of trust. Because the earth is also fear. Confusion is fear. What's happening? What's going on? This is the fear of not getting enough, of not being nurtured. Water is the nurturing element, the cleansing, but without water, nothing happens. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have all the food and you have all the oxygen and you have all the heat and you have all the space and you have everything else, but if you don't have water, you're going to die most quickly, because you don't, I mean, other than not having oxygen. The next one is water. You don't have water, forget about it. Because water brings in all the nutrients to everything, gets everything moving through, and it brings the nurturing. So it represents giving of the resources to survive, nurturing. And so you notice that in our society, people have a lot of lower back pain. Lower back pain means that they don't trust that the universe will give them what they want. And ironically, what people do who have lower back pain, who have money issues, they want to then clamp themselves off even more. I was talking about this the other day. A new person came on and I did one of my ads for one of my things, and the guy says, "Oh, I really want that, but I have to save up." And of course I came at him and I said, that isn't how the world works. If there is something that you believe you really need and you really want, you go get it. You go expend it. You go take the risk. And that opens you up for the universe to bring in the resources necessary to provide for you. But holding yourself off and continuing to cut yourself off from the waters of nurturing doesn't give you more savings later on. Because you have to trust. And to trust, you have to take action. You have to go get what you want and trust that mom will take care of you, that mother will nurture you. So water has a lot to do with that. So those are the 5 elements, and I've given it to you in the order that it should be done. Here I've got to actually got to put it on there. There we go. This is the order that it has to be done in. So now that I've put it up there and you can see it, the liver sound, the ether is shh. The fire, the heart sound is ha. The earth sound is hoo. The air sound is s. I didn't give the water sound yet. Water sound sounds just like, I don't even know how to write it. Like a faucet. Okay. So the water sound is a guttural sound. It comes from back here. As if you take the heart sound and bring it back to the back of the throat, it's. What is the sound when you turn on the faucet? That's the water sound. Again, I have no idea how to spell that. So those are the 5 elements, and those are balancing. So we talked about the 7 chakras, which is the journey of the spiritual energy associated with psychological awareness, the journey that it takes on the earth. The 5 elements, this can be used at any point in time, and you use it to balance. The 5 elements need balance. This is why shamanism is my preferred word for the path that I follow, because shamanism is dynamic balance. It's not about achieving a static state of spiritual anything. We're always in a state of dynamic balance. You're always juggling things. Once you balance this, another one's going out of balance. You got to balance that, which pulls that out of balance. So It's this constant dance of keeping everything in balance. So those are the we talked about the 9 worlds, the 7 chakras, the 5 elements. Now we get into something I have not talked about yet, which is the 4 minds. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. Again, this is a question and answer, and I appreciate people are holding off, because you know how I feel when people just type in their whatever the hell, their stream of consciousness stuff. Drives me crazy. I only want your questions. Mbia Lee, that's not a question. So that's what I want. I just want your questions. You write the word question in all caps and then write it in normal script and write a good question so I can answer it. Zerlath is asking a question. How can I heal my anger at the state of the world within me? Well, you watch my channel and read my books and do the practices. Are you doing any of those things? I think you are. It's a process. One of the sad things that the movie The Matrix did is it told people that if you all you have to do is just take a pill. Just take the blue pill, I think it is. Just take the blue pill and then you'll be woke. That's just so childish. That's not how it works. It's a process. I'm still going through my process. You guys, I share with you my life. I share with you when I trip over myself, and I share with you where I'm going. It's a process. So how you can heal your anger at the state of the world is get some help. Zerlath, do you have a teacher? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a therapist? Do you have somebody that you can work through? I mean, that's what therapists are for. If you don't want to work with me, work with somebody. But you can't heal yourself. To answer your question, first and foremost, you can't heal yourself. We are a team, human beings. We need to work together. A brain surgeon cannot do brain surgery on themselves. They need to have another brain surgeon come in and do it for them. You can try. You can sit there with a couple of mirrors and maybe put a mirror here and a mirror here and then look at it backwards and try but then that doesn't work. You can use those 5-element sounds that will help, but this sounds like a pretty deep-seated issue. You've got anger at the state of the world. Now, one thing you can do, you don't have any power over the state of the world. So while I understand and relate and accept that you have anger at the state of the world, it's kind of an insane thing to do because you're angry about something that you have no control over. You don't have any control over your next door neighbor, let alone the state of the world. The truth is that you're angry at the state of the world because you're afraid. And anger is a defense mechanism, and anger becomes stimulated when we are afraid. So you want to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid is going to happen? People go on about the government this. I talked about MGTOW and how they're angry at women and it's like they're trying to legislate women's behavior. Like somehow, if we can convince society to teach women to be more subservient, that somehow that'll fix the problem. And seeming to forget that women are humans and humans have all kinds of different personality traits, and some are this way and some are that way. You can't legislate it. You can't guilt society into guilting. You can't do it. It doesn't work like that. It's ironic because they think that society is trying to demasculinize them, and yet what they want to do is demasculinize women so that they won't feel oppressed or attacked. It's lack of control. You can't control anything or anybody. And I'm not saying you're a MGTOW, Zerlath, but the way you can heal your anger at the state of the world is to number one, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What do I think they're going to do to me? How does the state of the world affect me? I'm now here in a foreign country on a visa, and this whole, the borders have been shut down, completely shut down. So nobody can come into the country because I'm not a citizen. If I leave the country, I can't come back until they lift the borders again. So I could go off on that, but I have no control over that. I just got to wait it out and see what happens. So take a look at what you're afraid of, what you think is going to happen to you, and then learn to trust the universe. Learn to go and experience your joy, as I teach. Go live your joy, and just don't worry about things that are out of your control. Just deal with what's in front of you. So Jamie Turner, hi there. That's not a question. Anyway, I don't see any more questions here, so let's move on. So I stopped at the 9 worlds, the 7 chakras, the 5 elements, the 4 minds. So for that, I got to find my notes. I had some notes that I wanted to talk from, and my desktop is a little messy here. What did I do with those 4 minds? My notes on the 4 minds. What I did with them. And this is based out of one of the Vedic traditions on the mind. One thing I like about it is that it separates the mind. I mean, even though they're talking about the 4 minds, they're talking the true mind from the intellect. And this is something that we need to understand here. Where the hell is it? All right, I'm just going to have to minimize everything that I'm not using, and whatever's left is my notes. So there's a difference between the mind and the intellect. I'm sure you've heard me all say that many, many times. The intellect is the part of you that you try and... Actually, what was that one? Is that it? No. Intellect is what we use to try and understand the world. There we go. No, that's not it. Okay, this has to be it. No, that's not it. Are you kidding me? No, you're not kidding me. That's really annoying. Oh, that's so annoying. I'll see if I can try and remember it. I may not be able to remember it because I just pulled it up for this. So there is so let's just go in the order that I would do. So first we have the mind. So the mind is, there's a word for mind in the Indo-European, which is the word man. We find it in the Vedic in the word manas. We find it in the word man, meaning human being. You've heard me talk about that. If you haven't, don't worry, I talk about it all the time. That the ancient word for human being is mind, man. That there was a point in time when both men and women were referred to as man. And it's because it is the mind. Now the mind is associated with the emotions, and it's associated with the meditative ability to reflect the spirit. That's why human beings are called mind. I mean, the name for humans is mind. That means that humans have something that animals don't have. Animals don't have the ability to meditate. Only humans have this. Now, the mind is associated with the moon, and if you've noticed, there are things out there called the moon is a soul recycling center. That's not a complete understanding of it. The moon represents memory, and it represents memory of the self. I found it. Here it is. When we're talking about the mind in terms of the Vedic tradition and in terms of the ancient Indo-European understanding of mind, it is the collective memory of the self. And without this collective memory, then we're forced to just live in the moment. And in fact, I'm now coming to realize something. I recently went through a really horrible relationship with somebody who had very severe borderline personality disorder. It's a very deceptive if you've ever met or had any interactions with somebody who has this disorder, it's very deceptive because at first glance they seem very functional. They're very lucid. They're usually very brilliant in many ways, and they're very emotionally able to express themselves in the beginning. What they can't do is they can't take any experience that's happening and move it forward into the future. So whatever experience that you have with them is only going to last in the moment. It won't last sometimes even into the next hour. And what ends up happening is that because they have no self, which we're going to get to, they have no identity, there's nothing for the emotional experience to root into, which means they have no emotional memory. And sometimes they have no memory, like they won't remember entire conversations. They won't remember even like weeks of experience. They won't have any memory of it. Sometimes they don't even know what day it is. It's because they don't have anything to root themselves or their emotions into. So their emotions are just like waves that come and go and then they're gone. Now, for those of us who do have other aspects working within us, when you interact with these people, you have an intense experience with them, you think that you just had this great emotional connection that's going to turn into something later, but you remember it emotionally and they don't. So the next day they wake up, and if they're in a different mood, they'll treat you like they never saw you before. They'll know who you are, but there won't be any emotional memory of it. And it can be really saddening and really painful. And it's really painful for them because they can't function. They can't hold down jobs. They can't keep, any real relationships going. All the relationships have to be on a superficial level. And they're in a lot of pain. They can't function. So they pretend to function, and they do that really well, but it's very sad for them. So the memory, the emotional memory of who you are is a very important part of being able to function, but it's not the true self. So I found the four minds here. So the four minds in the Vedic, and this is just one interpretation. Somebody else is going to tell me, no, there's 64 of this, and generally speaking, we've got four minds. We have the buddhi, which is the intellect. The intellect comes from the Latin word to pick apart from among. The word to read, leggere, means to pick apart. It's what you do. Right now I'm reading these shapes, which are sounds and syllables, and when you string them together, they make words. Those words have meaning. My mind is picking all of these things apart in the sounds and creating meaning, and then you're doing the same as you listen to me talk. Your intellect is listening to the sounds and putting together the sounds to create words and thoughts and sentences and concepts, and that's the intellect. And then there's the ahamkara. Aham literally means I am. So ahamkara means the principle that creates the I am. And this means your identity. Again, I said that people who have borderline personality disorder, they don't have an identity because of the trauma they went through as infants. They never created an identity. And so since you don't know who you are, you can't root any feelings or experiences into a continuous self, and therefore that's why they disappear. They can't make any promises. Whatever promises they make, they won't fulfill because they can't. And they'll change how they feel about you at the drop of a hat. They'll love you or they'll hate you. There's no in between. There's no ability to tolerate uncomfortable feelings within themselves or other people. So the moment that you stimulate an uncomfortable feeling, they destroy you. They destroy the relationship. They can have nothing to do with you. This means that you have to have a self. So without a self, there's no place for manas, memory, to root into. And then the fourth aspect of the mind is called chitta, which literally means perception. There's all kinds of other definitions for it. One definition I saw a long time ago, I went looking for it, but I really loved it. is that chitta comes from the same root word as we have we have it in English, but I think it's a Latin word, chart. And what is a chart? A chart is a map. A map tells you where you are. And you map out where you're going to go because you have a chart in front of you. Chitta is that. It's the perception. The perception of awareness. You are aware through your perception. All of these things are limited. All of these things are aspects of the limited three-dimensional world. They're not real, but we use them as tools to get to. So somebody can use intellect. Somebody can sit around with books and read books. I use my intellect a lot, as I just did, explaining things, and that is a way to get to ultimate truth. The intellect is not the ultimate truth. Ultimately, the intellect stops working and you have to drop the intellect because it can only go so far. The intellect will take you away from manas, which is emotions. The intellect is here to protect you because if you're tossed in emotions, then you can't think too clearly. You're pulled from one emotion to another, one reaction. So the mind is reactive. It reacts from its emotions. And so the intellect balances that out. When you're on the battlefield and you're having all these emotions going on, you got to focus because that guy's got a gun pointing at you and you better figure out how to survive or you're going to get shot. You get wrapped up and I need to talk about my feelings right now, there's going to be a bullet right through your head. But then afterwards, you're going to have to go talk to somebody about what it was like on the battlefield and have all your thoughts and your feelings about that. The identity allows you to make decisions on your actions either because of or in spite of these other things. So this is why the people, this is the same with narcissism and other kinds of, personality disorders. They don't have an identity. Narcissists are interesting because they're so insecure that all they do is talk about themselves. And they relate everything to themselves. But that's because they have no identity. They don't have a sense of self. And so that's why they're not able to have any empathy because they have no self. And so without having a sense of self, you can't identify with somebody else because to empathize, you have to go, oh, wow, that really hurts my feelings when people do that. That must be hurtful to you, and I just did that to you, and oh, I'm so sorry about that. I really empathize with you. I won't do that again. If you don't have an identity, all you're thinking about is what you want. You have just like Cyclops, you have just single vision about what you want, and you don't see anything or anybody else. So identity is really important. This is the ego. People talk about ego, but most of the time when they talk about ego, they're actually talking about narcissism, which is a lack of ego, a lack of self. And so having a true sense of self says, that's okay, you're that way because I know who I am. I'm this way, and I'm different from you, and you're different from me, and that's okay. So, Mr. Rogers had a very powerful identity. He really was really great at that. When you watch like Mr. Rogers, and one of the main things that he talks about is you're okay just the way you are, and it's okay for you to have your feelings. And he was really good at that. It was one of the great things about him. He really had strong empathy for other people, and that's because as a kid he struggled because he was made fun of for being, I think it was for being overweight, and he was made fun of so much that he just determined that he was not going to do that to other people, and so he learned to love himself, and then he spent his whole life teaching children to love themselves, have an identity, have a sense of self. And then we have intellect, and we have identity, and we have manas, which is emotional memory, and then we have chitta, which is perception. And this is one of the main things that goes on in meditation. So when people are meditating on their perception of reality, they're working with the chitta, and they're seeking to experience and understand and transcend limited perception. You can't have perception without a sense of self. You can't have perception without a memory. You can't have perception without intellect. So these are the four minds. So we've gone through now the 9 worlds, the 7 chakras, the 5 elements. Those are the 4 minds. Then we get to the 3 selves. Boy, what a strange question that is. I'll get to that when I feel like it. The 3 selves. This is what I think is one of the things that's missing in the understanding of the world. The 3 selves, you are not one self. You are a community. You have the 5 elements. Each of the organs in your body has its own awareness. In fact, when you sleep, according to the Taoist, each organ has a self that leaves the body and goes and dreams, which is why when you wake up in the morning, the last thing you should do is get woken up by an alarm and then jump out of bed and run in the shower and drink coffee and, according to them, the rest of your organs are still waking up, and they have to go find you. They have to go and get a bus and find you at work, which is why it takes people getting at work. When you're at work, like, how are you? I'm not awake yet. It's because your other selves haven't caught up to you yet. So that's why doing yoga in the morning is good, and breathing and self-massage. This is the reason why when you wake up in the morning, you stretch and you do this. That's the reason you do that. Because what you're doing is you're calling back the souls of your elements to come back into your body. You're telling everybody in the community, okay, come on back. It's time to become a unified person again. And they all come back, and then you feel awake. And that's why it's better to do that than drink coffee. Just sit and do some yoga and some breathing and some self-massage. And that will bring you back into your mind, into your body as a community. So we have 3 selves. We have the higher self, we have the lower self, and we have the middle self. And they ideally work together. And when these 3 selves work together, you have the ability then to manifest and create your world. So if you don't have the ability to manifest your world, if you're in torment, if you are in anxiety, if you are in poverty, if you are in illness, if you are in chaos, it's because your 3 selves are not in communication with each other. And when that happens, then it's a free-for-all. It's like, all the kids are downstairs. I have a 3-level house here, come to think of it. So, the level below me is like the garage, storeroom, playroom. And so it's like having all the kids downstairs and nobody's watching them, and they're just going crazy and lighting off fireworks and M80s. And that's your lower self when it's not in communication. It's just going to create chaos in the world. And then your higher self is like, oh my God, these people, it's like the grandparents going, oh no, this is horrible. And then you have the self in the center that is completely powerless. So if you are completely powerless over your life, and you're just watching all of this chaos and this horrible things happen, it's because you're not in communication with your 3 selves. This is one of the reasons I have no tolerance for victims. This is why I have no tolerance for, I've been going off on the MGTOW boys, because that's all they are. These are guys whose 3 selves are not in communication, and they are absolutely certain that everybody else is doing it to them. That they are victims of circumstance, and if they could just tell everybody else or separate themselves from everything, they're trying to control their universe, but they don't have any connection here, because the truth is you create your reality. That means that you can live in the most chaotic place there is, and if your 3 selves are connected, you will have an air around you that wherever you go, there will be order and bliss and happiness, even though everybody else around you is flipping out and is out of control. Everybody else is losing their money because of this or out of work because of that. You'll have everything you need. You'll have love, you'll have health. All of this is when the 3 selves. That's why the 3 selves are so important. That's why I teach that. Okay, so let me see. I did see if there's another question here. Jamie Turner asks a question. First off, again, guys, how many times do I have to say ask me questions about what I teach. Jamie Turner, is there anything in your question that has anything to do with my teaching? Second thing is, I want you to ask an honest question. An honest question is, there's something that you don't know the answer to, that you think I have the answer, and you're asking me because you think I know and you don't. Writing the word question and then throwing out a rhetorical statement so that you can put your statement out there and try to get me to co-sign whatever it is that burr is up your ass is not a question. And that's what you've done here, Jamie. You asked me, what do I think of Israel's worldwide technocratic homogeny? You've thrown out an assumption that I don't know is true. You are forcing down my throat your assumption that the nation of Israel has a worldwide technocratic hegemony. You know how I feel about assumptions. I'm not interested in your assumption. That's obviously your opinion. It's not a question. And I could care less. What I just said was that when we have all of our three selves connected, we create our own universe, and it doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what place you travel to or what community you live in. You bring in order into your world. What other people do is their problem. Why do you care? Are you that weak that what they do in Israel is going to affect you? And you probably give me all reasons why. Yeah, they're doing this and they're doing that. Is that a fun place to live? Do you enjoy living like that? Is it fun to be thinking about how other people are controlling or minimizing your life? That doesn't sound like a fun place to be. Why don't you just drop that and get honest about how afraid you are that other people are doing things to you? And then do what I teach. Jamie Turner, have you read my books? Have you done the meditations? Have you done the work? Have you done the very first thing that I know you've heard me say, which is the first thing to do is to drop all fear, trust the universe, and take full responsibility for your life? That question says you haven't done any of those things. And is that fun for you? Doesn't sound like fun to me. And then Jamie Turner, who must have known where I was coming. Denying your enemy's existence does not mean is his not there. I never said they weren't there, and I never said to deny their existence. What I say is you can have so much power that your enemies won't be able to touch you. That's the difference between me and you. Nobody can touch me. Everybody can touch you, even if they're in another country. God forbid they have a different belief system than you do, because they can touch you with that, and you're a weakling. It means that you don't have any power to defend yourself. More than that, forget about defending yourself. You don't have the power to create your own reality. So yeah, if I lived in that world where I lived in a world where people were weak and couldn't create their own reality and they were victims of circumstance, you and I would be talking about not just Israel, but the United States and North Korea and Russia, and we'd talk about everybody. And then if I was in that place of mind, you make me think maybe you've got some kind of racial bias. Then I could start talking about this race of people and that religion, and oh yeah, the Arabians and these people and that. Is that fun? Nothing's changed in 100,000 years of human evolution. There has always been those people. So even if we were to take care of this problem that you've pointed out, it won't change a thing, because somebody else will take their place and you'll be a victim of them. None of that sounds like fun to me. Does that sound like fun to you? So that's your great object lesson in the three selves, why it's so important to have the three selves empowered. Your three selves are not empowered and they're not communicating based on what you've said. If you want that, go do something that I teach. Practice something that I teach. And you can have that. Okay. All right. So no more questions. So I've got through how much of the things I've written have I got through? I think I got through everything. Let me see. Got through the nine worlds, the 7 chakras, the 5 elements, the 5 minds, and the 3 selves. Okay, so I've gotten through everything and everybody. I don't have anything really more to say other than that. I just really kind of wanted to address all these things and have something to think about and maybe give you guys more to talk about. Again, if you're coming onto my channel, the best thing to do if you want to get the most out of my channel is to actually watch the videos, and not just watch the videos, but follow the directions. And some of the simplest directions, people have come on my channel and watched me, they still haven't got it. That's okay. There's a lot of things I haven't got. It frustrates me because I wish you would get it, but that's just my inability to control the world. But the first one, let's go back to number one. Number one is drop all the fear. Any belief that has fear, which is somebody's going to do something to me, I can't do this, they won't let me do that, that's fear. So drop that. Doesn't mean that it's not true, just like Jamie Turner says. It doesn't mean that they're not out there doing that stuff. That's not the issue. The issue is, do they have the ability to do it to you? If you want to go there and allow them that power, then they can do it to you. And I know this sounds really a cavalier of me, because what if I was in such and such country with such and such going on? I can't talk about something I'm not experiencing. I can talk about what I've experienced, and I've experienced a lot of the stuff that people complain about, and I've overcome it. And I overcame it because, first and foremost, I said, you know what? I got myself into this. I can get myself out. And I said, I'm just unwilling to live in whatever it is, pain, illness, poverty, sadness. I'm unwilling. I'm absolutely unwilling. I refuse. And I know that trying to fight other people isn't going to accomplish it, that the fight is within me. And then the next thing that I do is I trust. I say, you know what? Since I deserve, and here's another thing, maybe, Jamie, maybe you don't honestly believe it. You probably say it in an angry defense of why they're doing it. I deserve to be free. I deserve to be protected. And so that's why we have to make those people stop doing what they're doing. You might say that, but you don't really believe it. Because if you really believed it, I deserve to be happy, healthy, prosperous, then that opens up well, since I deserve it, I'll get it. Now, how do I do that? That's the question. How do you bring to yourself what you know you deserve? If you think it has to come from other people, then you don't believe it. Then you don't believe you deserve it. This is when I was an actor. This is a lot of things that actors go through, and this is the same. I'm just using my experience. And there's some movie out there, and I went and auditioned for. I auditioned for The Matrix, by the way, the movie The Matrix. I actually auditioned for that movie. I was a reader. I sat there with the casting director when all the guys came in, reading for Neo and reading for, Tank and I sat there and I was playing Neo. I had the first script. Even before Keanu Reeves had it. I had the first copy of The Matrix. I wish I had kept it. I didn't, it looked like some cheesy sci-fi film that wasn't going to go anywhere. If I had kept it and gotten the autograph of those two guys, the whatever brothers, who are now the whatever sisters, that would have been worth a lot of money. But I remember when that movie came out, and I'm like, hey, what is he doing in that role? I wanted to play Agent Smith, and I asked, I said, can I audition for Agent Smith? I didn't get to audition for it, but I was like, I should have played that role. Now, there's plenty of roles out there. The idea that he got that role and I didn't, and it still happens to this day. It still happens to this day where I see movies that that came out in the 90s or whatever, and I auditioned for those movies. Reservoir Dogs is another one. I auditioned for that movie. And, I auditioned for Mr. Pink, and I look back on it, oh man, I would have done such a better job than that, but it's not about that. It's not an either or. There's no shortage of movie roles for everybody. There's no shortage of success for everybody. So if you think you're in competition with other people, then you're operating from fear. Drop it. So Jamie Turner, drop the fear, man. Who gives a crap what Israel's doing? gives a crap? Be in control of your own life. I mean, you can do it if you want. I don't want it. You can do that if you want. I forgot what I was saying. I had other stuff to say, but I forgot what it was, man. So that's the scoop, Daddy-O. All right, so was there anything else? Oh, so listen, if you're coming onto my channel and all you do is come onto the Q&As or come and watch the videos and that's all you do, I'm happy. Please keep coming back. Please keep watching. You know, let's get as many people watching the channel as possible. I want this to be the biggest, most viewed spiritual resource on YouTube, and I realize I just contradicted what I said earlier, but I want my channel to get bigger. I want it to get huge. So if you want to get the most out of my channel, more than just watch it, you got to do this stuff. If you haven't read any of the books, read the books. They're cheap, especially the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. And then once you've read it, do it. Do it every day. Do the Qigong, the free stuff on this channel. Do the free stuff on this channel every day. If you chose to, if somebody said, you know what, I am going to completely revolutionize my life and I'm going to have complete control and I'm going to create my own reality. If you had that and you had the self-motivation, you could go and I'm going to watch all of his videos and you would be able to go, okay, that one, I'm going to write down that one. I'm going to watch that one and that one. You wouldn't have to purchase any of the things I have on here. People want to get on my case. Some guy called me a snake oil salesman, which I'm proud because he's trying to say that, you know, that there's something wrong with me because I'm charging people money to get this information out there because I also want to have a good living. And God forbid I should charge people money for my knowledge and my experience. And I'm like, every time he says that, your snake oil salesman is selling this. It's like, yeah. And he's even got the prices on there. That's right. I'm charging X amount of money for this because I want to enjoy my life and this is what I want to, I choose to do this for a living. And I'm proud to say I've got all of these things up here that I am offering which are really cool, and if you want that, go and buy that stuff and then the money comes to me and it goes into my bank account and I get to pay rent on this 3-bedroom house and I get to go surfing and I get to work my own hours. Why should I feel guilty for that? Why should I be embarrassed about doing whatever the hell it takes to get my life exactly where I want it to be? Not working for anybody else. I'm creating my... why would I be... I don't understand the thought process there. How is that a put down? All he's done is he's told me that I've got the balls to create my own business, doing something nobody's ever done, and to create the life that I want. Thank you very much. If that's what a snake oil salesman means, count me in. That's what I am. So bottom line is, if you guys want what I have, you got to do what I do. If you want to complain, you can complain, Jamie Turner. Is it getting you anywhere? Is complaining about that making you any money? Is it getting you laid? It's probably getting you hanging out with a bunch of other people who are talking the same, complaining about the same thing. Which I guess is something. Anyway, I'm not trying to beat up Jamie Turner. I don't even know who that person is, but you got to be careful. That's why you should only ask real questions. And that wasn't a real question. And then when people double down after I pick their question apart, and then they double down and you're just, boom, let me just go to town on you. All right, so I don't think I see any more questions. I'm starting to just get kind of loopy here, so I'm going to go. All right, everybody, thank you so much. ThunderWizard.com if you want to learn shamanism from the ground up. And yes, it is a subscription, and you can cancel at any time if you don't like it. You get, I don't know how many hours. It's got to be like hundreds and hundreds of hours of, I put a lot of time and effort into that shamanism course. It's huge. $25 a month. Holy crap, that's less than a coffee every day. What the hell have you got to lose? And then there's the Manifestation Mastery course, and now we're moving into which I got to make videos on, the the divine masculine and feminine, which we're getting into. And then we've got courses, all of my stuff here, all of my books, everything. Go there, subscribe, hit the bell button. And then there's just no shortage of all these free videos. You can learn everything you want if you have the self discipline to go and look for the videos and chronicle the ones that teach you what you want. You can have everything you want on my channel if you just put the time and effort into it. But in order to do that, you got to drop the fear. You got to trust the universe, and you got to take full responsibility. If you don't do that, then nobody can help you. All right, and if you do that, then you can actually be the most powerful being in the universe. That's what I'm working towards. And the good news is that there's an infinite number of slots available for most powerful being in the universe. So there's no competition, just based on your own effort, your own merit. All right, guys, that's it. I will see you guys later.